Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Eleanor and I missed you so much. It feels like so long since I've been here. And I've missed doing this so much. This is a review of the year, and I surprised myself. I started looking back. It's not a full year. I've only been back on BookTube for about 6 months, I reckon. So I'll get right into it. I went back to several of the books that were foremost in my memory, in my mind from the last 6 months, and I changed my mind about a few things, and I see a few of the works differently. So I thought that's interesting. I should record this. So I'm looking now at Rachel Cusk's Parade and Sheila Heti's Alphabetical Diaries. And I'm a big fan of both of these authors, and I'm a big fan of their books generally, and was very excited when these two came out. I would say that Alphabetical Diaries feels more like a gimmick to me the longer I have to think about it. I still am happy I bought it. I'm still probably going to, when I can't fall asleep, I'll go back to it and enjoy, a few bits here and there. It is a gimmick. I have to say it is. Although I'm glad for Sheila Heti because I think it's a moneymaker and she deserves that because she is fabulous. Parade with Rachel Cusk, I would say, has gone down severely in my estimation from when I first read it. When I first read this book, if you're playing along, I took it so seriously and I wanted to research, and I did. I researched almost everything that was referred to in that book, and I desperately tried to get into it and really live in Rachel Cusk's world. And I've come to the conclusion that it's a shoddy piece of writing. It doesn't hold together. If you're looking for books about what it's like to be a female artist and what it's like to be a female artist with children or female artist who is aging, I have other options for you. And funnily enough, I hadn't realized that in the last 6 months, I've been reading mostly books that refer primarily, or at least a lot, to women who are artists/writers and women who are possibly struggling with their role within families, their role as mothers. So I would say if you are interested in that theme, don't go for this. This is not the best thing you can find on that topic. I would say if you're able to deal with Rachel Cusk's language, the way that the experimental way she writes, the way she doesn't have the usual traditional narrative structure. If you're able to deal with more mysterious, more quote-unquote difficult writing, just get this. Forget Rachel Cusk. Get this. Robin Schiff, Information Desk. Yes, they've marketed it as a book of poems about the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's about being a woman in the world of art, being a woman who works at the information desk at a young age, and how you deal with different issues, gender-related issues, how you deal with gender-related issues within the artworks themselves, and most importantly, what it's like to be a female poet. I mean, she starts off with this, I'll just so that you get an idea, chapter 1 of this monumentally gorgeous poetry book is this: the monument to Balzac might be a monument to Balzac jerking off. And there it stands on my roof at all times, invisible to the human eye, but the morning sun casts its shadow on the front lawn nevertheless. Don't read this. Read this. You see, it's the shadow of the chimney of her family home. And the shadow looks like Rodin thinking, because he's so important, you know, he's such an important man, and the sculpture of him is so important, but it's really just the shadow of the chimney. I mean, really, this is hard work. This is not a poetry, but this is not Mary Oliver. This is not going to make you feel cozy and warm, but it'll make you think, and it'll get better with each rereading. Okay, other works that I read, not having realized that they were about, you know, I didn't really think about the theme, but of course, All Fours. All Fours. None of my videos have had the incredible popularity of my one short, it's like a 12-minute review of All Fours. I've been thanked in comments, I've either been thanked or I've been kind of gently mocked. And I believe both reactions have basis in truth. I wouldn't say that Miranda July is the genius that many people make her out to be. I think she's a very interesting and unusual artist. I think she wrote a very interesting book, but it is the Miranda July show. If you've seen her dancing on Instagram, then you've basically, that's in a nutshell, is her book. Something interesting I discovered since reading it, it seems to be popular, and I'm generalizing, I may be wrong, but this isn't my sense, seems to have been very popular with the younger women. Not so popular with the women who are actually going through perimenopause/menopause. I am, you know, I am middle-aged, and I will say that I don't have one single friend who has wanted to read this book. So I'm not sure what's happening there, but it is in the divisive way that Miranda July presents her art, whatever it may be. So she presents this story. I still I still recommend it. I still think about it quite a lot, but it's the Miranda July show. Going on to continuing with the topic of women struggling with their art, I still highly recommend Australian writer Charmian Clift's work, Peel Me a Lotus. It's available as a twofer, so the two novellas really, Mermaid Singing, which I have not read, but I read and reread Peel Me a Lotus and highly recommend it. If you like travel memoir that has a running theme of how extraordinarily difficult it was to be a writer and wife and mother in the 70s, I think, 60s, 70s, on the island of Hydra. This really is it. Beautifully written. I'm just checking. No, it's 1951. Apologies, I got that wrong. 1951. Charmian Clift was married to George Johnston, who took all of the accolades for what he wrote, and she was really by his side the whole time, writing this, to me, this genius memoir, Peel Me a Lotus, plus dealing with 3 young children. Need I say more? Concerning male-female relationships, this is interesting. I only read one Clarice Lispector book. I tried a couple of others. Maybe I'm contrary. Maybe I feel like because Clarice Lispector is the flavor of the month that I don't want to read her. But I picked up this book because of the cover is a Leanne Shapton cover. I love her. She's an artist, illustrator. I love this book. Now, This is the book I would recommend if you want to delve into the mysterious ins and outs of a relationship, male-female love relation, heterosexual love relationship, that goes into great detail concerning the tremendous overthinking that both the man and the woman do. And it has an afterword by Sheila Heti that's brilliant. Now, about growing older as a woman, and again, heterosexual relationships, I read for the first time Colette, Cheri and the End of Cheri. This is a new translation that came out. This is the edition that I recommend, having read a couple of others, translated by Rachel Caro, forward by Lydia Davis, who you may know, writes great short fiction essays, short nonfiction. I first read Break of Day, which is a later work by Colette, which I highly recommend if you are interested in reading a delightful and yet a deep and introspective view of what it's like for a woman to deal with her aging body and her sexuality as she ages. The same, obviously, for Cheri and the End of Cheri. Now, an unexpected addition to this theme that I discovered, which is male versus female, is actually Gerald Mernane. Now, Gerald Mernane was the standout of my last 6 months. I had not read anything by him before, and he is still probably my favorite writer still. And I would now recommend for you, if you're interested in Gerald Mernane, and I'll come back to where the theme of the male-female comes in. But before I do that, I want to tell you, you can go online. I'm going to leave you a quote below, because online, one of his short stories is accessible for free. It's called When the Mice Fail to Arrive. It's actually also the first short story in his book of short stories. And it is the first work by Gerald Mernane that I read, and that's what hooked me. So without forking out money, you can read this short story that he wrote and see if it's for you. Now, how does it start when the mice fail to arrive? One afternoon in one of the years when I used to stay at home to mind my son and my daughter and to do the housework, while my wife was away at her job, my son was caught in a thunderstorm. This is a man who was at home with his children, and his wife went out to work, and he tried to write. He has an unusual way of looking at the world, I believe, because of that. And it's not because, I don't say that because his work is filled with, his work is not doing this. It's not doing this. And I look at this with distaste because it's pretentious. Okay? It's pretentious. His work is not that. His work, he knows he's a man. He knows he's caught within the parameters. He knows he's a man. He's not pretending to be a woman writhing in agony as she's trying to be an artist, but he's haunted by a very unusual image. It is the image of a girl. I was going to say young woman, but I think it really is a girl, somewhere in Hungary. He's never been outside of Australia. He's never been outside of the state of Victoria, and he's haunted by this Hungarian girl that he read about when he was young, something happened to her, and there's a hint of something terrible that happened to her, that a man did to her. And she runs barefoot through the frozen plain. And there's an image of a well. And he is obsessed with this image. this one image, the fact that he, as an artist, as a male, as a heterosexual male artist who mostly has male characters in his works, the fact that he keeps coming back to this image has haunted me. And I went back now to Inland, which is one of his books. As you can see, the well, the Hungarian well is a theme, but it's very subtle. It's not like he brings it up all the time. It's just he does it in such a way that one mention of the girl in the well here makes this look like I need to give it away to donate it, because it's much more complicated than this and yet much simpler. So that's where I stand, which now brings me to Aysegul Savas. I discovered her only about a month or so ago. One of my favorite writers now. Can't wait for her to come out. She's coming with some short stories, some new short stories next year. I can't wait for. Again, if you're interested in women in a world of art, go and read White on White by Savas. One of my top books of this year. Highly recommend. If you want to read about Savas's experience in the first 40 days after the birth of her daughter, read The Wilderness, just came out recently. The Anthropologists, I think, is a very good read. I would say if you're going to read this, very short, if you're going to read this, then read the very short Anthropologist by Savas next. And then you'll have these two different versions of what life could look like being a couple. One, overthinking to the nth degree. The other, almost no introspection at all in the way that you'd expect. Absolutely fantastic. Now, moving on to poetry, I would say I spoke a lot about prose poetry. I would say my favorite prose poetry of the year is still today In the Taxi. I still think about it all the time. I still go back to it all the time. Highly recommend this. I am still a huge fan of Nachum Weinberg. That will never change. If you are sick and tired of flowery language and oversimplified views of life and romance in your poetry, then Nachum Weinberg is for you. It's like reading him is like jumping into a vat of ice water. You will be refreshed and your life will change. And you'll want to jump in again. The Lucy Brock-Broido love will never end. I will never master her poetry. It cannot be mastered. But I own every book that she's written and I return to it all the time. Auden, a few poems here or there, fine. Oh, I have a recommendation which I discovered after I spoke about Elizabeth Bishop. I bought this. Now, it's very hard to read, to be introduced to a poet, especially if they're a poet, you know, they're not alive anymore. They were great and they wrote a lot. And so you have this collected works of Elizabeth Bishop and it's like this thick. Yeah, how can you even begin? It's like, it's like those sandwiches. You get like an American sandwich. Like, how are you going to get your mouth? Like, how are you going to eat that? It's impossible. So I would say buy this. So I didn't even know this was still being done. It's her book, Geography 3. Why did she call it Geography 3? Because there was, and I think there still is, a textbook that is called Geography 3 that all the primary schools were using at one time in the US, I guess. So it looks, she basically had it put together to look like a textbook. And even at the beginning, it's just adorable. It's just so lovely. She has like lessons and questions as if it is, from first lessons in geography 1884. Lesson 6. What is geography? Answer: a description of the Earth's surface. So you feel like you're going into the geography of her life. And I would say that the poems in here are they're the original poems that she chose to be in this book when it came out. And it's teeny tiny, and one of her most famous ones, one art is in here, but a variety, there's a variety of her poems here. And this is a fantastic introduction. I think this is the way to go. Finally, I will say that thanks to the Pocket Emily Dickinson that was edited by Brenda Hillman, I discovered Brenda Hillman's book that just came out, and I did a whole video on it. It's my previous video called 3 Talks. Brenda Hillman is the big deal, the real deal. I have yet to read her poetry, but her critical work is right up my alley. And it was through her and the research I was doing that I discovered this new poet, Jean Valentine. I have not spoken about Jean Valentine yet because she will hopefully be with me as I make my first video of 2025. Jean Valentine is a poet I have discovered in the last couple of weeks, and I adore her. And I found a critical essay written by Brenda Hillman on Jean Valentine, which is superb, as are several others. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I think that sums it up. So if you have any questions, if I haven't linked, if I mentioned something, if you're not sure, if you're shocked that I no longer want to talk about Rachel Cusk's parade in positive terms, if you perhaps bought or borrowed or found one of the books I mentioned and liked it or didn't like it, put comments in. I read all the comments and love to respond. I wish you all the best for the new year, and I'll see you January 2025. Bye-bye.